Welcome to the Dr. Broadway Podcast, the musical theater history podcast where a couple of doctors sit around and talk about Broadway. I'm your co-host, Dr. Kristin Stultz Pressley, joined as always by Dr. Tracey Brent-Chessum. Tracey, we are talking about one that I am chomping at the bit to see. Like, this is one of those, like Boop, that I have followed because it seems like it would be right in my wheelhouse. So tell the people what it is.
So we're talking about Just in Time. So that's the bio musical for Bobby Darin today.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So this one opened in 2025 on Broadway at Circle on the Square, but it was in development.
We're just a year out.
Yeah, I mean it's brand new, which is how it
new.
missed. Which is how it missed the list before. Because when I made the list for season 2, this show had just opened on Broadway, so it was certainly not yet touring. So, but it was at 8 years in development. It actually started, and I love this part of its story. It started at the 92nd Street Y as part of the Lyrics and Lyricists series.
Yeah.
So that one's near and dear to my heart because Dorothy Fields was part of it very early. The series started in 1970 and she was featured, I believe, in 1972. So very early in it.
Is that where Sondheim did the frogs? In the pool?
I think it is. I wouldn't swear to it, but that does ring true to me.
Does that? Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think I do know a little bit more about this than I thought I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll talk more about it in just a minute, but it's a really, Lyrics and Lyricists series is one of those things that I wish I were in New York more often or close enough so that I could take a train in and go to these because they are unbelievable events. And they feature, as we're about to find out, they feature some top shelf talent. So it's a great series. And that's where this one is born. But before we talk about it, I want to talk about The Outsiders.
Your text messages. I got text messages from this woman, like, while she was seeing it this weekend, and they were hysterical because you are not a sentimental person. You like to laugh. And the text messages that I was getting were not laughter. They were a little weepy, a little bit. And I was like, oh no, what has happened to my friend?
Well, when I went in to speak about the show, after seeing the show, I was at the Tennessee Theater in Knoxville, Tennessee to see it, and then I speak after it. I went in to speak and I told the people who were there to hear the lecture, I have cried my face off. If my face is swollen and puffy and you can't see mascara on my eyes, it's because I cried it off.
It's gone.
Oh, yeah. So, I wanted to bring this up because we had just recorded Boop, in which I talked without apology about my love for funny Bob Martin style musical theater. And then on Saturday, just a few days after we recorded, I go to see The Outsiders, which is not even a little bit funny. Like, nothing funny about it.
Several weeks.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Yes, we did. Also in season 2. So if you haven't heard that one, go give it a listen. But that show, Tracey, like, I almost talked myself out of going. I almost didn't go because I was like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like my speed. I'm going to be bored. I'm going to be leaving at intermission. This is just, I don't know. But I went. And thank God I did, because that show is breathtaking. Now, it's not the kind of show I think I ever want to see again because it's very difficult subject matter. Very difficult. But the direction, the choreography, everything about that show is breathtaking. And I absolutely see why it was the talk of the town and continues to be the talk of the town. One of
so funny.
4 musicals to recoup since 2020.
And it seems like such a dark horse. Like, you don't hear tons about it. It's
right.
not, but it has come kind of out of left field and really does kind of impact people. Like, I literally got a text message from Kristin that said, I'm weeping, call Bob Martin, I don't know what's gonna happen. Oh no. And I was like, oh wow, then it's good. Look at this.
So good. It was so good. Oh man, it was so good. I highly recommend it. Do what?
It did recoup, right? It
did recoup.
A month ago.
It's one of, it's earlier, just a few months earlier this year, it recouped. And it's one of only 4 shows that has recouped since 2020. So 6, MJ and Juliet and The Outsiders are the only shows that have recouped since 2020. And it's recouped not by way of the tour, but it's still running on Broadway. So a lot of times we've talked about shows will take to the road to recoup and get their money back that way. But this one did it.
This one did it on Broadway.
Yeah.
I had seen somewhere that was closing in June. Is that right? Or have you seen that?
Think so.
That's
but
knowable.
I could have missed it. Let's see. Let me give it a
This is
click.
a knowable thing.
Yeah, right. Is The Outsiders closing? I can't imagine that it would. Let's see, but you might be right. Let's see. No.
Nope.
It is not.
It's not. There we go.
It currently has tickets on sale through January of 2027.
Okay, see this show.
Yes, go see it. Go see it on the road. Wherever you got to see it, go see it because it is so worthwhile, but difficult to watch. It is not an easy story to watch. It's an important story, but it's not an easy one. And when listen to the episode to learn about the backstory of it, how it was written by a 15-year-old girl. Yeah. I think that even more was in the back of my mind thinking, how did a teenager have this level of insight?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful direction by, I know I'm going to say it wrong. Is it Danya Taymor, Julie Taymor's niece?
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
I don't remember beautiful. How you pronounce it.
I don't either. And I'm sure I'm butchering it. So my apologies for that. But she does beautiful, brilliant work. Go see it. So I mentioned that there are 4 shows to have recouped since 2020. One that is anticipated to recoup is The Talk of the Day. Just in time. It hasn't yet recouped, but it's anticipated to recoup. And one of the reasons is because its budget is $12.5 million, which, as we know, is unheard of. The Outsiders was $22 million.
So so we're getting a little creative here. It's a small show. It's done Circle in the Square, right?
Yep.
Circle in the Square is really pretty intimate. It feels very much like a little. It's not a theater. Is it a theater in the round all the time?
Yes, it mostly. Every time I've seen it
there, it's always been a three-sided thrust stage.
I think because was it Oklahoma? The Revival of Oklahoma was there, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the round, or was it thrust?
Yeah, so I think
one or the other.
It's pretty adaptable in there, but it's it's a small theater. It doesn't need anything huge to make it look spectacular because you're so close. But then this particular show doesn't have. I mean, it's got some big names in it, but it's not a huge cast. I mean, 16, 17, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty.
And really, your only necessary headliner is the Bobby Darin role, right? Which, of course, was originated by Jonathan Groff, and he's been associated from the very beginning, which we'll talk about. Now, I think it's Jeremy Jordan who's in the role. Matthew Morrison I think, has done it. Yeah.
Well,
so that's really
the
your
stage,
big expense.
Yeah, and they're setting up the stage a little different in the fact that it's like there are apparently like tables.
Yes, like a nightclub.
Like it's like the nightclub. Like that's what they've kind of done with it, which is really, really smart. But that does not cost the kind of money it takes to do really, really fast sets. For Broadway, real, like huge fly systems. None of that is necessary. So this is a show that's really going to like work on the merits of just the book, and the music, isn't it?
Yeah, sure seems so. And of course, it is the biomusical of Bobby Darin, whose life has been told a number of different ways, as we'll talk about in just a minute. But let me tell you first about Bobby Darin, because to be perfectly honest, I knew his name. I knew Beyond the Sea. I love that song. I actually, in graduate school, it did not work, but I attempted. We had to do like a 10-minute play, or I don't remember if it was whatever it was. But I got this idea that I was going to set it to the rhythm. This is so stupid, of Beyond the Sea by Bobby Darin. And that wasn't the assignment. And it wasn't a musical. It was just in my brain as I was writing it.
I'm sorry. Anytime anybody gives me that kind of an assignment, it's going to become a musical.
Fair. Exactly.
People hand me straight plays. They hand me Shakespeare and I make it a musical.
And we're going to make it.
Help it.
It's got to sing. It's got to sing, right?
You go for it.
So I don't know why. I don't know why I picked Bobby Darin's Beyond the Sea. I actually explained it to my playwriting professor, who was so kind and generous and supportive. But now as I look back at that, I'm like, God, that was so stupid. What was I thinking? But that's basically what I knew about Bobby Darin was Beyond the Sea, because I loved that song, right? But there's a lot more to know about him. He has a fascinating biography. So let me tell you what I have learned about him. Bobby Darin was born Walden Robert Cassato in the Bronx in 1936. He had a working class really upbringing there in the Bronx, born to an Italian family. His father actually died before he was born. He was a small-time gangster who was not super good at being a gangster,
obviously.
Bless his heart.
Love those stories.
So his father died before he was born. And the woman that he thought was his mother, the woman who raised him, was a woman named Polly Walden, who was a former vaudeville performer. Now, he would learn later that the woman he thought was his mother was actually his grandmother.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
the woman that he thought was his sister, his 17-year older than him sister, Nina Casado, also a showgirl, was his mother. He doesn't find that out, though, until he's an adult. And as you can imagine, it is life-shattering for him to find that out, not surprisingly. So, but he's raised and seems to have a very loving relationship with the woman he thinks is his mother, and Polly Walden. And as a child, he suffers from 4 bouts of rheumatic fever. This, of course, weakens his heart massively, and so he's too sick to go to school. So what he does is he's home with his mom, hanging out at the house. You can imagine she was a former vaudevillian, a showgirl herself, so they listen to lots of show music. They listen to Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and all the greats of the era as he's sitting around as a child battling rheumatic fever, and not just, active fever, but the effects of those fevers on his heart. When he is a child, and this is very impactful for him, he overhears the doctor say to his mother, even with the best of care, he's not likely to live past 20. So imagine you're a kid and you hear that, how that would light a fire under you, right? And that's exactly what it did. And Bobby Darin, for the rest of his life, he actually ends up living until age 37, which is by no means a long life, but much longer than he expected to live. He lives like he was dying, as the Tim McGraw song goes. He is very aware of his own mortality from a very, very early age. And, not long after he signs his first record contract in his early 20s, he tells a reporter for Life magazine that he wants to be a pop superstar by the time he's 25 years old. And part of the reason for that is, of course, he was full of all the bravado and confidence of a kid who thinks he's going to be a superstar. But at the same time, he also knows he doesn't have a whole lot more time to work this out. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon.
He's pretty confident that his heart's going to be okay for 5 years, but he can't speak for it after that.
Not beyond that, right? Exactly. So while he's home with his mother, listening to all these different great musicians, Sinatra, Fitzgerald, all the greats, he also becomes a musician in his own right. He starts writing music. He's very good at piano. He's a very comfortable drummer as well. And so he decides he's going to join the drama program at Hunter College in New York. But he's only there for a year before he drops out to go record demos at the Brill Building. Now, the Brill Building has come up here before, but I do want to make a very important distinction. The Brill Building is at 1619 Broadway, and it is not the same, although very similar things happened there, as 1650 Broadway, which is where Carole King wrote as featured in Beautiful. So what these buildings were, they're right near, both of them are very close. The Brill Building and 1650 Broadway. But they're very near the Winter Garden Theater. So if you know the theater district, they're right there. And these were where, Tin Pan Alley kind of moved uptown, right?
Yeah, so Tin Pan Alley is the next generation of Tin Pan Alley.
Exactly. So if Tin Pan Alley was where, the great standards, Irving Berlin is plugging songs down there in the 1910s, all of that hubbub of songwriting activity in the 10s, 20s, 30s happens there. Well, when we get into rock and roll and pop music, things kind of move uptown, and that's where we see the music publishers and the song pluggers all housed in the Brill Building and at 1650 Broadway. And so that's where Bobby Darin goes. Now, at the time, of course, he's not Bobby Darin, he's Bobby Casoto, or I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's not Bobby Darin yet, and we'll talk about when that happens. So he goes to work at the Brill Building. He gets a record contract, but nothing happens, kind of falls apart. But he's given a second chance by a music producer who'd shaped the careers of the Rolling Stones and John Coltrane. And he's signed to this label, which would eventually become Atlantic Records, which is still a very well-known record label, in 1958. It's not Atlantic when Darin signs, but it will eventually become that. And that's where he takes on the name Bobby Darin. Of course, it's much easier to pronounce than his birth name. And there's a couple of schools of thought as to where this came from. One is that it was plucked from a phone book, kind of a random, I'll do that one. But the other story, kind of the urban legend that floats around about how he picked his stage name was he looked up at a sign for a Chinese restaurant called Mandarin Chinese Restaurant. And the first three letters were out. And so we went with Darin. Now,
all right.
I have no idea.
That
no
sounds
idea.
A little too cute by half. But
it does indeed. It does indeed. So, like I said, he signs in 1958 with this new producer and with the company that will become Atlantic Records. Later that year, he writes a song that becomes his first big hit, and that song is Splish Splash. I was taking a bath long about a Saturday night, right? And allegedly, he writes this song in 12 minutes. How about that? He was heavily influenced by the piano stylings of Jerry Lee Lewis, who, of course, Great Balls of Fire, whole lot of shaking going on.
And for a long time, I thought that was it would
Jerry
make
Lee
perfect
Lewis
sense. Song. Like,
Very, it would make
very
perfect
similar.
sense. Yes. And that was the style, really, with that early rock and roll.
Yeah.
And so that's a big hit. It takes off immediately. It sells more than 100,000 copies in 3 weeks. So as you can imagine, Darin is thrilled with this success. He continues to write. His next hits come out, Queen of the Hop and then Dream Lover, both of which sell over 1 million copies. And then in 1959, he hits with the big one, Mac the Knife.
Yeah.
Borrowed from Three Penny Opera, right?
Yeah.
So Mac the Knife wins the Grammy for Record of the Year. Darin wins Best New Artist. And then throughout his life, he would win 5 Grammy nominations overall, and then a posthumous Lifetime Grammy Award. And he is inducted for his music prowess into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1990. I want to stop here and say, guess who else was inducted in 1990? Well, let me go through the list because there were several. Number one, as it pertains to this podcast, is the Four Seasons. That was the year that Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons were inducted. We then get Simon and Garfunkel, The Who, whom we'll talk about in the
Who's Tommy.
Upcoming. That's right, in an upcoming episode about the Who's Tommy. The Four Tops, the Platters, Louis Armstrong, and a few others.
Yeah, like
save some for next year, right? Is there going to be an induction in 1991?
No, apparently not.
Let's do it all at once. So at any rate, in 1959, he hits with Mac the Knife. Obviously, his place in music history is secure. He's a future member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But also in 1959, he goes to Los Angeles and inks a 7-picture deal with Paramount. Big time. Now,
He's
but you
good.
got to think contextually, this is the time when Elvis Presley is making music and doing movies. You know, this is a normal thing to happen in this day and age. Not so much now, but certainly then that was the norm. So he inks a 7-picture deal and makes his acting debut in 1961 in a comedy called Come September, which I have never seen or heard of. Have you?
No.
No, me either. But what's important about that film, beyond being his debut, is that in the filming of it, he meets Sandra Dee, right? Sandra Dee was a teenager when they met. He was 24, and they pretty quickly marry, have a very famously tumultuous relationship, as those are so often. They had a baby very quickly. They break up in 1963 and then get back together and ultimately divorce in 1967. He continues acting and wins a supporting Oscar nomination in 1963 for a drama called Captain Newman, M.D., in which he plays. Isn't that wild?
Which is so different than like what he's been doing up until now. You know, like those. It's a rare person that can do both.
I know.
You know, like serious drama, like can do it and do it well. It's, yeah, they're not that far apart, but they do take very, very different skills in some ways. So
that's right. That's right.
Especially for somebody who's not like is doing this just because it's coming out of him. He's not trained or anything.
That's right. That's exactly right. So he was outrageously talented.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're in the mid-ish 1960s by this point. So as music changes from standards to rock and roll, so does he. Darren decides he's going to have to go with the flow. And if music styles are going to change, he's going to change his own musical style. So he attempts to be a folk singer for a time. He plays the Copacabana in Las Vegas. He, that's kind of where the nightclub act component of Just in Time comes from. It's based on that experience in Las Vegas. And in fact, he signs a $2 million contract to open and do a 3-year residency at the MGM Grand in Vegas, which would have started in 1974. But he died first, unfortunately. In 1971, he had 2 of those super damaged heart valves replaced. And in the years after that, he had lots of exhaustion, battled arrhythmia constantly as a result. And in December of 1973, he had to go in for an exploratory heart surgery. And there was an infection around the valves, and he died during surgery at 37 years old. So, a tragic, though not unexpected, end for Bobby Darin. Also, I do want to point out that $2 million contract for the residency in MGM would be the modern equivalent of $13 million, which tells us how the cost of these contracts has far outpaced inflation. For instance, if you signed Britney Spears or Celine Dion or whomever, Gloria Estefan even, to a contract like this now, you would get so much more than $13 million, right? It would be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So I was so interested at that to see what the going rate was then and how it is so surpassed that now.
Yeah.
So there you have the life of Bobby Darin, which is fascinating. I mean, I learned so much. So short. Tragically short. Absolutely tragically short. Just an enormously talented guy who just was dealt the fatal blow really as a child, with those bouts of rheumatic fever at a time. I don't know today if there are medicines that can kind of combat that or can repair the damage done, but certainly back then there were not. And so his life was cut short.
That's not one you hear about very often.
No. Thank God.
Yes, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I had scarlet fever when I was little, and everybody said that was super rare, and nobody wants me to give blood. They won't let me give blood.
Really?
Yeah. But
how about that?
But I was like rheumatic fever. I was like,
Do we still have that one?
Yeah, that specifically attacks the heart, right?
Yes,
Is that what it is? And then,
well, and in fact, my grandfather had it, and when he was in the war in Italy, he contracted rheumatic fever, and then in the 70s had to have an artificial valve replacement, and he died at 59.
Yeah.
So he died young as a result of a weakened heart as well, but not as young as Bobby Darin. But it was all due as well
4 bouts with it? My goodness.
Rheumatic. I know. Rheumatic fever was the inciting incident for my grandfather's heart trouble as well. So,
oh, jeez.
Yeah. And around the same time period, too. So, So now that we've talked about Bobby Darin, let's talk about the show, about his life. And that show, of course, is Just in Time. And Just in Time starts with a man named Ted Chapin. Probably listeners to this podcast are familiar with that name. Even if they don't exactly know the man behind it, they're familiar with Ted Chapin. That name comes up a lot in musical theater circles. He's very prominent. For a long time, he was the president of the Rodgers and Hammerstein organization. He was the co-founder of the City Sitter Encore series, which has sent shows like Chicago to Broadway, the revival of Chicago. He was a chairman of the American Theater Wing. He remains a trustee of the American Theater Wing. And in 2018, he began his not career, but his tenure as the producer of that 92nd Street Y's Lyrics and Lyricists series that I mentioned earlier. Now, this series focuses on creators of the American Songbook, and it's all hosted by the 92nd Street YMCA in New York City, which is an unbelievable organization with speakers and performances and all kinds. It's way more than a swimming pool and a track, right? It's all about the lecture series, so much intelligentsia that happens there at the 92nd Street Y, and the Lyrics and Lyricists series is a part of that. So he's brought in and is looking for shows to produce as part of his tenure as the producer of Lyrics and Lyricists. And in 2016, just before he takes over at Lyrics and Lyricists, he is in Australia and he sees what's essentially a jukebox musical called Dream Lover, the Bobby Darin musical. And as he's watching this, he's thinking, man, Bobby Darin wrote so many of these songs. He should be part of the Lyrics and Lyricists series. I mean, it focuses primarily on writers of the American Songbook. So that's why you get
put a pin in something for a minute.
Yeah.
This whole he's randomly in Australia and there's this musical in Australia. That's happening more and more and more.
Yes.
These big musicals that they know down in Australia, then all of a sudden Broadway takes notice.
Right.
And says, well, they haven't come here yet. What are they?
Right.
What?
It can't be any good. Should we see it?
Well, it's because they don't tour that way. And so there's a lot of untapped talent, a lot of untapped intellectual property, lots of musicals down there. They value musicals and they do them really, really well. They seem to have a very, very different sense of pacing, most of them, than the American shows do, but so do British shows. So it's just, you're going to hear it more and more. So I just wanted to put a pin in that and highlight that, because
I'm glad that you did, because there's a connection to be made to our Beetlejuice episode. Eddie Perfect, the songwriter for Beetlejuice, remember, he's Australian.
Yeah.
And in addition, Moulin Rouge, Baz Luhrmann directed, and he's the mastermind behind Moulin Rouge, and he's Australian.
And notice what they're doing. They're taking American IP and creating and making something different out of it.
Yeah.
And they're very good at doing it.
Yeah.
They did that
I'm
with
glad
King
you brought
Kong
that up.
Too.
Yeah,
right?
that's
King
right.
Kong started down there, and we had heard about King Kong for years before it ever said they were gonna try to make it work for Broadway. So
that's right. I'm glad you pointed that out. So he's seeing one of those shows that they're playing around with. He immediately thinks, you know what? Bobby Darin wrote these songs. He may have been like us and thought, I didn't know he wrote that many songs. Wow. I didn't know he wrote his own songs. And he immediately thinks we need to unpack this for Lyrics and Lyricists. Now, Lyrics and Lyricists is not a road to Broadway typically. Sometimes it can be. Obviously, this is a case when it has been. but it's generally speaking not. It's a 5-night concert series, and it's the same show every night. So it's just 5 nights because there's such demand to go see it, right? So it's just a concert series, never meant to be a book musical, none of that. But in 2017, Chapin has been mulling on this for several months, and he goes to dinner with star of stage and TV, Jonathan Groff.
And
now,
the
Groff.
Spitter. We also call
and
him
the spitter. That's right. In fact, he references his, he calls himself a wet man the opening of Just in Time. So he goes to dinner with Groff sauce, as they call him. Sauce? And Groff, of course, made his Broadway debut, I believe it was his debut at 21 in 2006 in Spring Awakening. Mm-hmm. And he then, of course, stars in Hamilton as King George. He's done lots of TV like Glee and other things. So he is icon status on Broadway already. And Chapin approaches him after seeing a show one night and says, "What do you think about doing a lyrics and lyricist series evening as Bobby Darin?" And Jonathan Groff is like, "I don't really know anything about Bobby Darin other than there was a biopic in 2004 called Beyond the Sea, which starred Kevin Spacey as Bobby Darin." Now that I think about it, a light bulb just went off. The year I took that playwriting class was 2004.
There we go.
So I'm sure that I had been, I'd seen the commercials and that had, had to be connected.
But Beyond the Sea is connected to, they use it in Finding Nemo.
Do they really?
Or Finding Dory.
Probably.
Can you tell what we watch at my house? Like, this is, and I was like, that's where my kids know it from, because they sing along with it and everything. They know Beyond the Sea.
I love
they're
that
3.
Song. Yeah.
I think it's in one of those movies as well. It's like the credits or something. And
that would make sense.
That
would make perfect sense. I mean, it's a song that it's on commercials. It's a viral sound clip on social media parts. I mean, it is in the zeitgeist for sure. But at any rate, all he knew about him was that film from 2004. And so he begins a YouTube spiral on Bobby Darin. And before long, he's obsessed with Bobby Darin, right? Like, he's learned so much about his life and how fascinating his biography is and how unbelievable his career was, especially given that it was so short. And so he then tells his buddy, Alex Timbers, who's a director we've talked about on this podcast multiple times, about this potential show. Now, Alex Timbers, for those who haven't heard the particular episodes and may not be aware, he is the director of Beetlejuice. He is the director of Moulin Rouge. He was the director of Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. Actually, he wrote Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson and directed it. And he was the director, and I'm going to say this for my own sake because I loved it, of the Pee Wee Herman show on Broadway. Pee Wee, Paul Rubens' one-man show on Broadway. So this is before Beetlejuice and Moulin Rouge hit Broadway, but nevertheless, they're in the works at this time. And so Jonathan Groff mentions this new project to Alex Timbers, and the two had tried to work together before, but their schedule had never allowed it. And so the fact that this was a short 5-night, little concert series seemed like something that was bite-sized enough that they could dig into it together. And so that's what they did. Alex Timbers comes on as the director of the evening. Now, there's no storyline really. There's Ted Chapin himself wrote a little bit of backstory to who Bobby Darin was, but it's not anticipated at all that this will have a life beyond the Lyrics and Lyricists series.
And this isn't something that they didn't take it from the Australia show.
No.
They're like starting, quote unquote, starting over, even though one was a jukebox musical and now we're doing a different. This is another thing where we get into some interesting ideas of copyright and intellectual property.
Well, and I'm really, really glad you brought that up, because this is an important piece of the story. Chapin got the full blessing of the producers of the Bobby Darin, or of the show that he had seen. They were in full support. There was no like, I'm going to circumvent this and do none of that.
So he grabbed those rights from them.
Yes,
and
he
said,
did.
But I don't want to use your show, but I want to.
Well, because it wasn't expected to be, a libretto kind of show. It was just a song series, basically.
Yeah,
it was
I just want to do a song
review.
Series, but I want you to know that I saw your show, because it's going to come out at some point, and I don't want you coming back at me. Okay.
That's exactly. And he did go through all the. Yes,
Good.
he did go through all the proper channels. He had their full blessing. Again, it was not a competitive thing. It was he's an American writer that we should really include in this series. And I think I've got a performer who can do it, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think it was that thing that was, it was inspired by.
They must have had the rights.
They did.
So that's why he had to go. So he had to work with them to get the rights.
Yes, he was able to get the rights. Apparently, there were 160 songs that Darin had written, and he had a really hard time getting some of the rights for some. I read, and I this sounds very unusual to me, having dealt with song rights and writing a biography of Dorothy Fields. This was not my experience, but he bought some for like $35 on eBay.
Yeah.
That's weird to me. So I don't know that I may have gotten bad information there, because that certainly was nowhere like my experience, but who knows? I don't know.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
It depends on, it depends on what you need. But if they had like the dramatic rights to his story.
They had them worldwide. They had the world, which that's unusual too, because so often it's, I have the rights for,
So he must have paid them off for them, or made
there had to be something, yeah.
Or made them
producers.
Like producers, because if they didn't, then they made a very bad business deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Australians.
Right.
I mean that with the most love. Like, don't let our producers go and take your stuff. Like,
well, and I will say,
job.
And yes, absolutely. And I will say, I did not spend a whole lot of time on that, but I did see that Chapin had the full blessing of those producers. So I'm, I'm sure, especially by now, it's all wrapped up, and they probably do have a producer credit buried in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So at any rate, they do this 5 nights, January of 2018. It's the first show that Chapin produces for Lyrics and Lyricists. And Jonathan Groff, who knew nothing about Bobby Darin when he was approached about taking on this role, suddenly says, Darin lit me up. Right? Like it just resonated with him in a really spectacular way. And I think if you've seen clips of him performing the role, you know exactly what he means, right? I mean, it just lit him up. And Timbers made a really good point. Again, director Alex Timbers, who is also a dramatist. Like I said, he wrote Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson. So he's not just a director, but he thinks as a dramatist as well. He said, dramatically, Darin is really interesting, because what do you do when your whole career is on borrowed time? Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point, right? Like I mentioned early on, he knew that he was going to die young, right? Yeah. And so that just gave him that much more motivation to hit all of these milestones sooner rather than later, because he knew he didn't have a later.
Yeah.
Right? And so dramatically, that has to be really interesting to write about, to direct. So after the show, it's obviously a very popular concert. And so, and Jonathan Groff, the star of the show, is passionately in love now with this role that he has taken on. It lights him up, as he said. You've got a director in Alex Timbers who says there's some really interesting dramatic possibilities here with this character because of his biography. And so the decision is made then that they will maybe see what will become of this show. And so it goes through a series of workshops where they play around with some different things, and And then they bring in a couple of librettists. Again, like I said, for the lyrics and lyricist, Ted Chapin wrote a little storyline, not much meat on the bone. It was just really
it was like a nightclub.
Informative. Yeah.
Well, it's like a nightclub act where you walk
yeah,
through all
that's
of the
right.
scene.
Right.
That's where it is. But can you take a nightclub act to Broadway?
Well, it's been done, but yeah, not a lot recently.
Well,
so
'cause what happens when you
have
bring
one star?
You have one star, and people. There's an expectation when you're sitting in a Broadway seat that there is going to be that climactic plot structure,
Right.
And
right.
it doesn't have to be huge, but you have to be building to something, and then you have to have the denouement. Like,
Yeah.
that's there. But you
Yes.
don't have that expectation when you're sitting in a cabaret space.
Right.
So, yeah, you need someone to come in and shape it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they brought in some writers. They brought in first Warren Leight, who is a playwright who actually had a finalist for a Pulitzer Prize in 1999 with his play Sideman. And more recently, he's written for television and been a showrunner for shows like Law and Order. So comes from that background. And then Isaac Oliver was the co-librettist on Just in Time. He too is a playwright, an author, performer, comedian. And so those two work at fleshing out the book and making it a full evening of entertainment, like you said, so that it meets the expectation of the audience that there will be a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yeah.
And not just, a few little bits of dialogue here and there. So the show goes through all these workshops. It takes 8 years and $12.5 million, and it ultimately reaches Broadway in April of 2025. It's nominated, Tracy. This shocked me given the press that this show has gotten, but it's nominated for 6 Tony Awards and wins none.
Yeah.
I was shocked to find that out because it got nice reviews, especially Jonathan Groff. I mean, he was, we talked about
it's a
Boot.
one-man,
Yes, that's right. That's right. We talked
a-
about Jasmine Amy Rogers and the press that she got after Boop, how it was she's unbelievable. You got to see this girl to believe her. And Jonathan Groff got very similar sorts of reviews. So I was surprised that the show didn't win a Tony for him or anyone else.
There's a little bit of it. It's interesting to kind of when you do some digging on Just in Time, like what the atmosphere in the room is feeling like, because it is that one man show, because it is these iconic young Broadway actors that are taking on this role. The feel is a little different. It's a little fan-esque. That coupled with the fact that you have it set up like a cabaret space.
Right.
Changes I think it changes how the audience sees the show. I think what you've got a lot of people who are sitting in normal Broadway seats that have that kind of expectation. Then you have people who are sitting at tables, like all around the stage, so that it feels like it's at the Copacabana. It feels something like that, right?
Yep.
A lot of what I have been reading and the press that I'm getting is just how badly behaved some of the audience members are being.
Oh, that's so disruptive.
Well, and it's partly because it's like how you behave at a table in a nightclub while somebody is singing.
Different.
You chat with your friends.
Yeah.
You aren't sitting there enraptured watching a show. And so when you cloak it like that and you put it somewhere like Circle in the Square that's very, very intimate, people can cross the line. Apparently there's been lots and lots of complaints or instances where people are drinking too much sitting at that table, and even though they're apparently not allowed to have anything on their tables while the show is going on, it's obvious that they are not sober and are just ruining it for everybody else. And I think that's an interesting, like, the fact that is what is coming out now, I think is interesting. I think it's going to change on tour because you can't do it like you can do it Circle on the Square. So, Yeah, when I start like prepping for these episodes, I'm always just like doing random Googles and be like, well, what is the first thing somebody's going to find? And really right now it's like, could someone do something about these people,
Really?
at the shows?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be an issue on tour because you cannot,
right. I agree.
you can't put them in that. But I think it should have been something that we probably expected because the show is set up like, I mean, it's supposed to be in a nightclub, but it is not a nightclub that is encapsulated within itself at Circle in the Square, like it would be on tour.
Right.
So it'll feel, I think, a little bit more theatrical, especially on tour, than it does right now.
I wonder if they've had similar complaints with, like, Cabaret almost. It feels like every modern production does that Kit Kat Club kind of thing.
Stuff I was reading, they were like, this just reminds me of the worst abuses of the last Cabaret,
Yeah, okay.
People, there aren't tons of nightclubs where you can go and just listen to a singer. They really
don't exist anymore, do they?
We don't have that. And so, like, people come and they don't know the rules, or it doesn't feel as theatrical. I mean, it's only $12.5 million. This is not a theatrical show. This is a one-man, like, you're coming to see this guy do this one thing. And, he may be fantastic about it, but you're pulling a whole bunch of fans of an individual and putting them in a room that feels like he's just giving a concert. And how do we behave at concerts? That's a great point. Yeah,
like it's very different.
We talk, we yell, we scream. They keep going.
That's right.
There's no expectation that I will sit enwrapped with my attention. So
yeah.
I think it feels a little different for folks.
I think that's a great point because the rules are definitely different for those two scenarios. Also, I think you're exactly right that won't be the case on tour because we won't have the nightclub component on tour. But I think that's a great point with the Broadway show. Mm-hmm. I have not seen a Broadway cabaret. I mean, a Broadway cabaret with the nightclub tables. I know they've done it since 1998. I've never seen one. So I can't speak to that experience. I haven't seen it for myself, but I think you are absolutely right that the rules are different for those two situations. Yeah. And that would have an impact for sure, which is a giant bummer, but it's still obviously a really popular show, one that I look forward to seeing at some point. If not in New York, I would have loved to have seen Jonathan Groff because he just looks amazing in the role. Although I'm sure Morrison, Justin Jordan, and whoever it is, they're going to
Jeremy Jordan's doing it right now, right?
Yes, I think that's right. Matthew Morrison came in right after Jonathan Groff, and then now it's Jeremy Jordan.
Oh, and Jeremy Jordan is now having to defend himself for not taking his shirt off like Jonathan Groff did. Like, this is becoming a fan. This is a fanboy thing that people are getting to it. But when you see it on tour, I think it's going to be a very, very different feel. Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
There's going to be that distance, you know? And I think that distance is going to change how people receive this.
Yeah.
Because it didn't get bad reviews. People really liked it. But as it's gone on, this kind of audience weirdness has grown up around it.
And, one of the things that Jonathan Groff said as they developed the show, and he was part of it from the very beginning. So as they spent 8 years developing this through not only the concert, but then the subsequent workshops, is that they wanted to play around with the idea of the biomusical. And we can't really speak to how successful that is yet. That's one of those things that we're going to have to see. Does this impact the way that we handle biomusicals going forward? Mm-hmm. We'll have to wait and see. Like we've said so many times, we need 20 years ideally before we can really effectively comment on the impact of a show. But it is interesting that they went in intentionally trying to play with the form and revolutionize a form that had been around for a long time. We talked about Jersey Boys and how it was really one of the most successful in the modern, meaning last 3 decades era of jukebox musicals that tell the bio of the artist. So, it's been around for almost 30 years, and they're trying to play around and see how can we improve on it? How can we change it? What can we do? And so we'll have to see how that plays out from here. I had one last thought that I wanted to add in, but it's gone. So we'll just have to, we'll just have to leave that one out. I don't know what it was, but it was something else I was going to add about it. But it'll be interesting to see how this. Oh, I know what it was. One way is that Jonathan Groff speaks as Jonathan Groff at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, that is.
So there's direct address between the actor.
The actor who's
not
looking
the
back,
character. Yeah.
Looking back on the character's life, looking back on the
right
whose biopic it is, saying
That's
this is what I've learned from this person. This is what I see here. Now we're going to go back and meet him. Thing.
Yeah. So that's a different take.
Again, blurring the line between celebrity and character.
Right. So we'll see if that, I would imagine we'll start to see more of that and more of that. But what's interesting, Timbers is a common denominator here. I remember when Timbers said he would direct Beetlejuice. One of his stipulations was that Beetlejuice had to break the fourth wall and have a relationship with the audience.
Yeah.
And so here we see Timbers directing Jonathan Groff to break the fourth wall and have a relationship with the audience. So that's an interesting, just directorial hallmark of him.
But he's totally right, because in this day and age of TikTok and everything, and being able to have instant access,
that's so smart. You're
watching things flat with that fourth wall. Honestly, it's like, what's cool about it is being able to insert yourself into a world that you have no business inserting yourself into.
That's a great point.
That is our society right now.
You're right.
He's probably, right on. But we're going to also have to solve the issue of, yes, people are inserting themselves into these storylines, like the raucous audience and all of that.
That's right.
How are we going to maintain the experience and still allow people to feel like they are having that interaction?
That's right.
That's the next step.
Yeah. I think that's right. So it'll be interesting to see. Check back in 20 years.
And we'll tell you what we think.
Let you know. We'll see how that worked out. All right. That'll do it for this episode of the Dr. Broadway podcast. Tune in for our next episode when we will be discussing Mrs. Doubtfire. And until then, you can connect with us via email at hello@drbroadway.com or on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok at Dr. Bway Podcast.